What's up everybody, it's Victon. I have an Animate weapon, I guess what you would call a starter build guide for you guys for Delirium 3.10. Now it's not going to be a full in-depth long video of Animate weapon, and I will be coming out with one of those, but at this point I have taken it to tier 16s, but I haven't finished my Atlas or done level 8 Cyrus, but I actually haven't seen much about Animate weapon on the YouTubes, so I figured at this point let's just go ahead and get a build guide out. I know a lot of people would at least like to see something on how to start up an Animate weapon build, and in general just kind of see how it plays out and see if it's something they'd be interested in. So this will be kind of just how I progressed my character at least up to the tier 16s and what's been working for me. Okay, so like I always do, I'm going to go ahead and roll some gameplay footage in the background of some high level maps and a couple boss kills just so you guys can kind of see how it looks and see if it's something that you guys actually even want to play. And we will be talking about gear first. So good thing to note here is all of this, like I said, is under 30 chaos for sure. Super cheap to get it going all the way to tier 16s, no problem. There's really nothing that we need that's very specific on these gear pieces. It's really just life and resists. That's one of the benefits of going Necromancer. You actually get a little help of resists just through the ascendancy as well, and the fact that you don't need anything specific allows you to really just go for life and for resists. And in my case, I actually also went for some chaos resists as well, just because I have so much all res. I think at this point I have 130 plus on everything for all res, and I'm positive 32 chaos resistance as well, which really helps. So up here, the only rare that's kind of interesting is this +2 to socketed minion gems, and that just helps me with my Animate Guardian and my Raise Spectre, and it also allows me to raise an additional Raise Spectre just because the level of the Raise Spectre gets so high that you can raise one additional Spectre, so that's pretty beneficial as well, and it helps with their tankiness so they can survive. The wand, it's actually a pretty crappy wand, but you want a wand at least that's a convoking wand that can roll some minion stuff, so minion damage, minion attack speed, all that good stuff is pretty nice. In the end, you do also, what I would at least suggest is getting the craft on there that triggers a socketed spell when you use a skill, and that's huge for being able to kind of automate everything. So you could automate kind of whatever you want with your flesh offering, with your convocation, anything like that, so that's pretty good. But I don't have that right now and it's doing just fine. So now the only two uniques that I have for this build, the shield here is absolutely not mandatory at all. I only got it because it was super cheap. It's like 1 chaos and it has a whole bunch of life on there, so pretty good. This one is kind of build enabling. This is something you absolutely will need. Good news is it's only 1 to 2C. The big thing here is the all green sockets. We want to be converting all of our physical damage to cold damage. We're going to be converting it to cold damage so we can kind of double dip with generosity and hatred. So having that actually double dips into your physical and to your cold, and it gives a whole bunch of extra damage. It's just, I think at this point it's probably the best way to scale Animate weapon. There's some people out there that are also doing physical versions with Impale. That works pretty good, but for my testing it's about even, and I think this is the cheaper version just because these gloves are super cheap. Now getting this to 4 green sockets is a little tricky, so I do want to show you guys just a quick method on how to do that. You're going to go over to your crafting bench, and as you can see down here, there's a couple different crafts here. Now for these you actually have to do delve and go down. It's actually not hard at all, so just delve 20 for the 2 socket recipe, delve 30 for the 3 socket, and delve 40 for the 4 socket. So very cheap actually. Not cheap, but very quick that you can actually get those. Now the reason we're doing this is getting 4 green is 4 off colors on this. It's an armor energy shield piece, so that would take you so many chromatics. So absolutely not what you want to do. Doing this method will save you hundreds of chromatics. So you're going to take this piece, you're going to put it in there. You're going to want to make sure that it has 2 sockets first. So just kind of use your jewelers until it has just straight 2 sockets. And you're going to want to put it in here, and the first thing that you're going to want to do is get the at least 2 green sockets for 25 chromatics. So you're going to start out with that, and then you're going to hit 3 sockets, and then you're going to just keep doing that. If you don't, let's say you get a blue socket, then you're going to hit the 2 sockets and it'll roll back down to your 2 green sockets. Instead of using chromatics, we're kind of rolling it this way. But once you get your 3 green sockets, then you're going to do the 4 sockets, and it's the same concept. If you get a red one or a blue one, you'll just go back down to 3. and then it'll be 3 green again. So you're going to keep doing that until you get all 4 green. And it's pretty easy, and I think it took me about 50 to 60 jewelers, so not too bad. That's definitely way cheaper than hundreds and hundreds of chromatics. So I wanted to show you guys that because that will save you guys some time and some currency. Okay, so for flasks, absolutely my flasks are poo-poo. The only thing that you want to do for flasks is get a bleed immunity flask, a freeze immunity flask, and get a curse immunity flask. That's really it. You guys can kind of have the freedom to do whatever you want with your flask, whatever you guys have used in the past, but I would at least get a flask for bubbling or seething, so either the instant flask or the semi-instant flask but remove bleeding. So that's kind of the only one that you really want in every build, and after that you can kind of do whatever you want with your flasks. Now for jewels, I'm going to give you an example here of a jewel that you should definitely be getting. Jewels are really good for scaling minion damage in Path of Exile, so this is a good example. So minions deal % increased damage if you've used a minion skill recently, and you're going to be always using a minion skill, whether that's casting Animate Weapon, Convocation, Flesh Offering. So pretty much you're going to have 100% uptime on this, and it's a really good damage buff. You're going to want at least one jewel that also has minions have a chance to taunt with attacks. Really helpful. We have a whole bunch of Animate weapons, so if they're taunting, that obviously makes pretty good survivability for us, that things are attacking them and they're not attacking us. So you only need probably 1 or 2 of those, not a big deal. You can also go for different stuff like attack speed for minions. You can go for some flat. I would go for flat elemental, and you can even get double rolls like flat elemental cold, flat elemental lightning. Doesn't matter, as long as it's elemental, it definitely helps. Now after that, we're going to talk about skills. So pretty simple as well with skills. Obviously Animate Weapon is your 6 link. Now real quick, so 6 link, you can get a super cheap 6 link. You can either obviously run a Tabula, which is about 9-10 chaos, or you can get something like this. I got this as a white item, I think it was like 12C, and then just kind of roll it yourself. So super cheap to get a 6 link going. So 6 link, first thing that we're going to want obviously is Animate Weapon. Now minion damage support is pretty big. After that, we're going to want to go with elemental damage because again, we're scaling cold damage. We also have added cold damage support. We have melee splash, which we're actually going to be swapping out for multi-strike if we're bossing. And lastly, we have hypothermia just for some more cold damage. Well, now as you're leveling this, you're actually not going to have the triad grip gloves. You're only going to have normal gloves, so you're not going to be converting to elemental damage. You'll actually be still doing physical damage. So if that's the case, as you're leveling, I would stick to stuff like melee physical damage, brutality, and you can even use impale as well, and then only switch to the elemental pieces, so the added cold damage, the hypothermia, the elemental damage with attacks, when you get these triad grip gloves and you've converted all your physical to elemental. So we're gonna go over a couple of the other ones here. Like I said, generosity and hatred. The hatred is gonna go straight to your minions with generosity. It's not gonna affect you at all, but it buffs it a little bit, and we're double dipping with hatred from your physical and from your cold. Does more damage, some more multiplier, so very good. Bone chill with summon skitterbots, just so we can get some chill and we can get some electric going on as well, some shock, so very good for that. And after that, we have summon carrier golem, feeding frenzy. Feeding frenzy is pretty good, putting it on the summon carrier golem. Convocation, again, I pretty much have spacebar, which is what I have it on, held down all the time, just so my minions can go to me as much as possible. So convocation is pretty big as well. As I mentioned, Animate Guardian, blood magic. Now blood magic is actually for the race specter. We'll talk about that a little bit when we go over the race specters, but I also have elemental army. Elemental army basically will, when my minions hit anything, they actually lose 10% all resist, so it's a pretty good damage boost as well. Now with my Animate Guardian, I have on him, let's see here, so I'm not gonna have everything to show you guys, but I'll have a couple things that I can show y'all. Not in that tab, but I'll see if I can do it off of memory. So Learcast is the helmet that you're gonna want to be getting. Ambu's Charge is the chest piece that you're going to want to be getting. And the gloves, it's the Southbound gloves. And the weapon is the Dying Breath. And the boots are the drumroll Victario's Flight. So increased movement speed for you in nearby allies. So that's the all pieces that you're going to want to do for your Animate Guardian. Now all of that is probably under 5 chaos, so super cheap, and he actually never dies, so very good. And the fact that it's in this +2 helmet and you get +2 from your Ascendancy, it makes it to where your Animate Guardian is up to level 24, so pretty good, pretty tanky. Like I said, it'll never die. So moving on, so you're gonna have cast wind damage taken Steel Skin just for a little bit of survivability. And I have it linked also to Flesh Offering, and it's a separate Flesh Offering than my normal Flesh Offering. And the reason I'm doing that is just so anytime I take a good amount of damage, it just Flesh Offerings, and it's kind of automated. Once you have the crafted on here that it triggers the socketed spells, I wouldn't do it on your cast wind damage taken. You're just going to put it in here, but for now it's totally fine to also put it with your cast wind damage taken, or it's totally fine also to just manually cast it, whatever works for you. So over here I have Dash linked with Second Wind, and again you want the 4 green, so it's kind of interesting to make sure that we find 4 green sockets. So instead of Flame Dash, I'm actually going with Dash Second Wind. As you're leveling, I would go with Flame Dash Second Wind, but like I said, once we have the 4 greens here, Dash Flame Wind, it's actually pretty good. Desecrate and Bladefall. Now Bladefall is how we are summoning our Animate weapons. So you can see here you Bladefall and it actually leaves swords on the ground, so this is new for this patch. So then you can just start summoning them. You actually don't need weapons on the ground. You can cast weapons on the ground as you're mapping. If like a weapon drops, a white weapon, you can animate that. But if you just want to start the map up, you just do that and then you animate your weapons, and there you go. So also new to this patch is Animate Weapon has a base of 15 Animate weapons. Now that can go up if you have additional levels for your Animate weapons. I think at one point I had 18 Animate weapons, like for example when I had it in my helmet. But once you get it to your 6th link, you lose a little bit, and I'm currently just at my base 15 and it's doing just fine. So that is all of the skills that you're going to want to use. Like I said, super basic, nothing crazy. This will get you all the way to tier 16s, no problem. Check out if my updated build guide for the full guide is out. I'll link it in the description if it is, and I might change a few things up here. I also will update the path of building link, and I'll put a separate tab in there for in-game build. Some of these skills might change up, but for now this is super cheap version of the build, and it will get you absolutely to tier 16 maps. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and chat about the skill tree. Again, super basic. I'm not going to go over every single node because that would take forever. I just really want to show you guys kind of some of the bigger nodes here. I do have this up here for +1 to Spectres, just so I can get an extra Spectre. So basically what I have for Spectres right now is I have an Ape that gives all of my allies Frenzy charges. I have another Ape that gives all of my allies power charges. And lastly, I have one that curses everything with frostbite, so minus resistance to cold. So those are my 3 summons that I have. Other than that, really nothing too crazy here. This wheel is pretty big. It's just a whole bunch of minion damage essentially. You can kind of go over this in the path of building link to take a look at all of this if you want. Like I said, I'm not going to go over everything just because it's super basic. One good thing to note though is it does have a whole bunch of life. This all down here is life, so you can do this probably last. I would get all of this first as you're leveling up. Once you have all that, then you can come down here and kind of start filling it in with a whole bunch of life so you can start surviving in the late game. One of the big things to note though is that you are doing elemental equilibrium, so on one piece of your gear you are going to want to have a certain element to spells, and as you can see here in my wand I have added lightning damage to spells. So when I cast my Bladefall, it makes them take more cold damage. So you do not want to have added cold damage to spells on anywhere on your gear. So nothing on your gear can have added cold damage. You only want fire or lightning, and I would suggest lightning personally. Back to the skill tree. That's kind of the only big thing on this skill tree that's you want to make sure that you do correctly, otherwise it could really mess up your damage. So more importantly though, let's chat about the ascendancy. First thing that you're going to want to do is rush this. So you're going to get these right here, mindless aggression. Next you're going to get unnatural strength. So plus to level of minion skills is absolutely huge for any minion build, and it's the same for animate weapons. So plus 2 to animate weapons gives you a whole bunch of damage, and then just some extra damage here as you go up to that. So after that, I went over here to this. So I rushed this. Those are my first 2, and my third, I went over to Mistress of Sacrifice, just so your offering skills also affect you. So my flesh offering is giving me some move speed and some cast speed. And some attack speed as well, and also it just gives you some increased duration, which is pretty nice for your animate weapons at this point. And I actually don't have too much. For example, see, I don't have this skill effect duration. There's another one down here that I don't have. All that I have is this, and then just a little bit more on the tree, and I'm up to, I think I'm a little bit more than a minute and a half for animate weapons. So you really only have to summon these guys 2 times in a map, and it depends on your clear speed, but usually maps are about 2 to 3 minutes, so 2 times max. It's super nice. After that, my Uber Lab, I went with this, just a whole bunch of more damage, and again, that helps you fill out that resistance for your in-game gearing needs. Gives you some bunch of damage, and it gives you some elemental resist to yourself and also to your minions to again help them with survivability. That about is it though for the skill tree. Just check the path of building link and you can kind of go into it more in depth, and you can see what you would want to do for specific nodes and how you would path this. But I'll show you just real quick kind of how I pathed it from a kind of high level. So I went this way, I got these nodes first, I went over here, I got this, and then I filled up this right here, and after that I went over here and I got the +1 extra specter, so I could start having a couple different good specters for me as I'm leveling up. After that, I actually went down here and I got these nodes right here. These are pretty important for having your bone chill. So you can see I have a little bit of mana left over. If I did not have these nodes right here, it would be super rough, if impossible, to cast my animate weapons. So you're going to want to get these, and do not use bone chill on your skitter bots until you have these 4 nodes. So you get these 4 nodes and it helps you just have a little bit extra mana left over when you use your auras. So don't use bone chill on skitter bots until you have these 4. But then you come down here, you just get all this juicy damage. And then I came over here, got this juicy damage, and then I got this life, and then I filled in some more life. And then after that, probably in the Act 8, Act 9 area is where you're going to want to grab Elemental Equilibrium and grab some defensive nodes for your minions, because they're going to start getting hurt quite a bit more, and you're going to start wanting to do a little bit more damage. So that's where this comes into play. And then, like I said, after that, you just kind of want to go all the way down. Look at this, I don't even have a gym in there and I'm clearing tier 16, so it's super effective. And this is just a whole bunch of extra defenses. Dexterity is pretty light. Again, my gear is not that good, so if I had some dexterity on my, like for example, rings or my amulet, that might save me from the point. But if you need to, you can absolutely grab some extra dexterity from a couple different places. So that's really it for the skill tree. Check the path of building for the most up-to-date path of building as well. And that about covers it, guys. Like I said, clearing tier 16 with poopy poop gear. It's super fun. As you guys can tell, the playstyle is pretty fun if you guys like summoner type builds. If you've ever played Animate Weapon in the past, I would definitely say that the new version of Animate Weapon with this patch is pretty fun. I'm definitely enjoying it more so than the other ones. Just the fact that you can throw down your Blade Storm and summon them kind of like right in the beginning. Super nice. You don't have to carry around weapons. You used to carry around weapons in your inventory, plop them down at the beginning of a map, and it was just super awkward. This is much better, and I quite enjoy it. So be on the lookout for a in-game full build guide. If you guys do like this guide and it's working out for you guys, I would definitely appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe. This is a newer channel, so it actually goes quite a long way. that's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe out there. Don't be getting any infections. Stay in your house, play lots of Path of Exile, and I will catch you all in the next build guide. Thanks, guys.